Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about 5 ways to reduce your absence rates. The webinar will be hosted by myself as moderator, I'm Jenny, and by Gabby, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. Just some general housekeeping bits about today's webinar. It's scheduled to last for 35 to 40 minutes. The chat will be open throughout, so if you have any sort of questions or comments or anything else you want covered, feel free to pop them in there. I'll keep an eye on it and I'll sort of shout any bits out to Gabby if anyone has anything. We'll also be showing some slides on the screen for you. There'll be some interesting stats and facts on there. We won't necessarily have time to go through them all in detail on today's session, so we'll be sending out the slides afterwards for you, which also contains a free crib sheet at the end. So that'll be coming to you afterwards. So obviously, as you can see on the screen, this is hosted by us at edays. Any of you who aren't familiar with edays, we are a leading absence management software provider, and we have customers all over the world. So our database includes hundreds of thousands of absence records that are logged every single year. So this kind of puts us in a unique position to, spot trends, take a deep dive into the challenges that surround absence, and it means that we're really passionate about absence. So we want to empower people to manage it as effectively as possible. So, we're here today to share some of that knowledge and to help you to reduce your own absence rates as we go into the colder months, because I'm sure some of you are aware these typically kind of spike, and we want to try and reduce that as much as possible. The edays system itself is naturally well equipped to help you with everything that we're going to be sharing. So we are going to give you a sort of sneak peek of that as we go along as well. So we'll dive into the software as we go along, and we'll show you how it can help with everything that we're covering. In a moment, I'll hand over to Gabby to introduce himself and to take you through the rest of the session. But as I say, if you do have any questions, please do pop them in. Thank you, and over to you, Gabby.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. As you've heard, my name is Gabby. I'm presenting today and taking you through how to reduce your absence rates and fundamentally how to understand them. Over my 6 years here with edays, I've spoken to thousands of clients and businesses on ways to reduce their absence rates and ways of effectively understanding them and using a system to actually do that. So we're going to try and wrap everything into today's session. So what are we talking about today? So we're going to be covering sort of a few main areas. So understanding your absence rates. This is really important because absence rates are completely different within every organization. And what we're not just going to look at is not just understanding rates. So physically, how many people have been off and how many days are they supposed to work, but actually understanding your own absence and what that might mean. And we'll give some industry specifics and take a deep dive into understanding your absence. Ways to reduce your absence rates. One of the key elements, we're going to be doing this from a process, but also a system perspective. It's really important to understand sort of the current situation in the UK and worldwide as to why this can be really important. We're in probably one of the most tough moments in his recent history for absence rates. So being able to reduce them and understand them is going to be really important. The final section is how edays or any system that you use will be able to help. Every system will have their own specific ways of doing so. And we take sickness and absence really, really seriously here at edays, and we want to make sure that we give you as much help as possible in doing so. So we're going to go into a little deep dive into some of the ways that you can do that within the platform. So let's start with the importance of understanding sickness rates. So in terms of sickness rates across the UK at the moment and globally, they're at an all-time high. CIPD has just released at the end of last month that it's up to 7.8 days versus 5.8 days on average per employee, which is actually the 5.8 was what it was pre-pandemic. So it's actually above there and the highest it's been in 10 years. Across many different outlets, understanding why that is a variety of things, whether you look into the cost of life, living crisis being one of them. This is causing a lot of businesses and lots of employees to feel very stressed meaning they want to work additional time, additional hours, which then causes burnout. When you look at burnout statistics, I mean, you've got over £25 billion costed to the economy through burnout and presenteeism, reported by Deloitte for 2022. So these are huge, impactful parts as a complete absence rate understanding across the board. Not only that, you've got a variety of sickness triggers and stress, all affecting sort of this amount. So what does that mean for understanding your own absence rates within your organization? So first of all, it's about calculating and having a really important process for understanding them. So this would come from good reporting tools, but also making sure that they're measured correctly within the organization, which is usually the largest part of accuracy for your absence rate. Then it's going into understanding what your absence rates mean for your business specifically. So understanding your sickness rates doesn't just mean how many people are off, how much time are off, but you can start looking into and asking your data or information more in-depth questions. So these can start with something simple like, is it short-term or long-term? Now, short-term and long-term typically come from different areas. If you look at most short-term sickness, these come from minor illnesses, whereas long-term typically comes from larger problems like injuries or musculoskeletal, or very commonly mental health. The average mental health sickness length is 16.8 days, which can cost the business a lot of time and actually cost that employee a lot of well-being. So these are really important to understand. Do you have a short-term or a long-term problem within the organization when looking at your absence rates? The second part is absence is inevitable. So of course, you're going to have a certain amount of inevitability. You see lots of percentages thrown around, 2.6%, 4%, 5%. What does that mean for your business? You know, how many days do you work? Does that 2.6% relate anything to your business? Are you under that? A lot of businesses will look at, we're having, 4 days per employee. But actually they find out that that's actually, really, really expected within an organization. And you actually just need to go in and understand it and refine your process. It's certainly not a huge problem. After you've done that, it's about working out why you want to achieve what you want to achieve. Do you want to improve your productivity as a business? What KPIs have they come from? Do you want employee experience or engagement to rise? And again, that's going to help to understand what you need to do and how much you need to improve those sickness rates. We've got some amazing statistics, as you can see on the slide. You can see that disengaged employees have 69% higher absence rates. The sort of relationship between employee engagement and absence rates it is a fantastic one, and often you'll find that they go in hand. If someone has high employee experience, they'll have low absence rates, and low absence rates, high employee experience. So if you're trying to improve your workplace, improve culture, improve staff retention, these will be directly linked to improving your sickness rates. And likelihood is, if you have great culture, that will also result in a lower absence rate as well. So in terms of the next section, which is cost of absence, so how much this actually costs you to the business, cost the business. First of all, this is quite an easy calculation. This is something that you can work through and do within your organization. You can look at sort of the average amount of salary of an employee and the amount of days that they have off. This obviously gives you quite a direct cost of absence, but actually it's the indirect absence costs that are huge. So what do we want to do and how do we want to work this out? So in here, we want to look into the amount of time spent by managers talking with employees. We want to see what's resulted in burnout. Burnout is a really huge one. So you've got the Gov reporting that there's 100 billion annually lost. You've got Deloitte reporting sort of 70 billion lost. These figures are calculated from a lot of direct and indirect elements. And this is something that we want you to look into. How is presenteeism working within the organization? How much do you feel that your business has burnout, and what that cost is? And then it's about effectively creating a way of reducing that. So we've got a stat from ourselves that on average we reduce 83% on admin time, but admin time isn't the only area that we're going to help you with. We want to discuss lots of different ways that you can create a fantastic sickness journey, which is going to allow you to reduce that cost of absence. So what do I mean by a sickness journey? Something that's going to help this. This is ideally the best process that you internally as a business can go through. We'll go through an example in our system, but in terms of what you want to do is, first of all, start with why you want to reduce your absence rates. It's employee engagement, experience. You want to improve your productivity, your staff retention. Is it business growth? Is that the reason why? Or is it a focus on sort of mental health and well-being and why that helps the business? The second point is what you want to achieve. So how much business growth, how much staff retention, what does that look like against your absence rates and your cost of absence, whether that might be employability ratings, improved performance. There's a variety of different things that you can then look into. And then it's how you're going to implement this sickness journey. What is it you want to record? What that process looks like? Can you capture the reasons effectively and create a variety of pattern analysis that's going to do it? And of course, this can't be done by yourself. This will take tech infrastructure and the buy-in within the business to help create this sickness journey, which in turn reduce the cost of absence. We're actually looking into a lot of articles, and recently it's been looked at around creating a well-being approach can really help reduce your absence cost and have a return on investment. Every £1 that you spent on a well-being or mental health approach or any kind of section in there, that will actually typically have a 500% return, which is just over £5 that we can talk about in terms of that element there. Which brings me on to caring about well-being. So caring about well-being is all about creating and understanding what parts of well-being are important to your business and what parts are important for you as a team and your business. So let's start off with burnout. So there's a variety of different ways that you can help affect your burnout and improve your well-being. Burnout can often come from overworking and stress. This is something that we spoke about earlier, but in terms of how it works and how it's effective within your organization. So the first part for overworking, so when we're talking about stress, is do you have physical staff? Is it mental? Is this to do with the ways of working within the organization? Is there a high level of stress before work and after work? These are indirect parts sometimes of burnout, which is not recorded. So how do we record the time that can be affected with burnout? So there's a huge correlation across how much basically leave time you have or how much holiday or vacation or break. So if you have you don't have a lot of breaks, then the chances are there's a much higher chance of burnout within the organization. The second part to enrich that data, because alone that's going to be very difficult to tell. Someone might not have a holiday for 6 months and that's perfect for them. But other people might need sporadic breaks. The next part is to understand if there are any sickness absences to match across that. So sickness absences can typically be anything. So they might have a day off, they might have a couple of days off. But once you start seeing the data where you can see employees are not taking many breaks that are chosen breaks, remember, some form of planned absence or holiday is booked in and planned by that employee, and sickness is typically unplanned and will be a reactive response to potentially being too tired, being overworked, stress, burnout, feeling like they can't take time off because the job is so important and they want to be a high performer. But high performers typically do have more sickness and take less holiday and less breaks. Once you have that, if you have any other data, this can be the amount of hours they've worked, where they've worked from, do they travel, do they do overtime? You can start to build your own burnout factor. This is going to be sort of a true response to your business, and you can start to understand exactly how you can improve that employee well-being by eradicating one of those elements like burnout. Burnout, as we said, is a big cost of absence part and will be a big part of your absence rate. So if you can do that, that's actually going to help cascade all the way through reducing your absence rates and, of course, sort of reducing and improving your employee well-being. The next section I want to talk about is mental health. Yesterday was a fantastic celebration of World Mental Health Day, and it's brilliant to see so many organizations really take grasp of it. I think it's the most inclusive year I think I've seen across social, across sort of all businesses that I'm speaking to, and whether they're implementing something across there. So mental health, 50% of mental health is hidden within absence. So there is a direct correlation between your absence rates and the likelihood of mental health. This was reported by Deloitte in their 2022 report. And this means that if you are having a lot of absence rates, there's likely going to be mental health within that. The second part is, this is where you're going to start to analyze long-term and short-term. If long-term is much, much higher within your organization and you don't have, let's say, a physical workforce where musculoskeletal or injuries may be likely, I would say that that would be a really good opportunity for you to understand your data and go in to find out whether mental health might be something that you can help to organize and understand and invest into within the organization. Once you've got this data and you understand your long term, you also understand how much sort of absence rates you have, and as a metric, you might find that sort of 50% might be around normal within your organization. The next part is to implement some form of process within the organization and then go a little bit deeper into individual records. This means understanding patterns. Are there the same days being taken off? Are there specific reasons that are given? That means that you can empower your managers to have these conversations with their employees. If I was to ask you, are you okay? The chances are probably will say yes, everything's fine. If I don't ask, you're definitely not going to come out and tell me. And something that is really powerful at the moment is the responsibility behind the manager, the friend, the partner to ask those questions. It's gone viral from yesterday, but I'm not sure if anyone's seen Norwich Football Club have done a big mental health piece where they show it's basically two football fans, and one's very quiet, one's very loud. And they sort of showcase the quiet person, maybe alluding to them maybe having an issue internally, and the other person sort of speaking lots and potentially, not asking the right questions, but kind of saying, are you okay? And there's lots of quiet answers. And then at the end, it's a very sad ending, but the loud one is actually no longer there, showing the hidden effects. And actually, it seemed like they were asking, but not answering the right questions. But the silent person certainly wasn't asking anything. So that mental health is definitely hidden within your organization. And I know that's quite an extreme but important piece. Being able to empower managers to have open conversations where they can see, I can see that you've had a cold on a Monday for, every Monday for the last 5 weeks. Is everything okay? Can we help? What's going on? It might be as small as, I don't like sitting next to that person because I come in the office on that Monday, but it also might be the opportunity to open up that conversation, understand your absence rates and understand a way in which you can actually improve, the conversations between employees and managers. And that is a business and corporate responsibility now, not just for the best managers or the best leaders. So in terms of what we want to sort of finish off with from information here is just going back over the summary of sort of the 5 ways that we see the most effective to reduce absence rates. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of time just to deep dive into the practical side of that and how that might actually be attributed or fit into a system. So first of all, understanding your sickness. So we want you to be able to go in and understand your sickness rates. Of course, take into context what the country you're operating in, what the averages are, of course, what the lay of the land is. We've spoken about, if you use UK as an example, You have a huge amount of stress, cost of living crisis, rising prices, pressure from work, high presenteeism. Those must go in, and you must think about those when you're understanding your own sickness rates and what they look like. There will also be industry specifics. We spoke about long-term and short-term. So understanding those absence rates. Are they going to be from injuries? Is there something you can do that is practical within the factory, across your staff members, where you can improve their health and well-being, but actually their health and safety being a massive part of that. The second part is in sort of implementing a robust process. So making sure you have a great sickness journey. We've talked about starting with the why, and sort of moving down into how you create that. And I'm going to give some examples of that and how we do that in edays. Empowering a people manager approach, empowering them to make sure that they have the ability to understand data, visibility, understand when their staff are in and out, meaning that they can have these open conversations. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can do that when we look at edays too. A proactive approach is always best. Use your data. We have so much accessible data at all times now. Being able to go in and actually create reports that are going to be effective, that ties into empowering, people within the organization. And the final piece, prioritizing employee well-being. It's huge. This is exactly why we're talking about it. That can be burnout, presenteeism, mental health. It can be greater culture. And as we can see, you fundamentally do get a return from a business perspective, meaning for every pound that you put forward, you're going to get around £5 back, which means that if you're sat there and you see the importance of these initiatives, but you need to present to a board, present to a business to make sure that they do as well, this is exactly what you can do. You can take these types of figures to really drive that in. So that's pretty much everything we're going to go through from a presentation perspective. We're now going to take a small deep dive into edays and how it can be managed from here. What I do want to just touch on is that we are going to send out a crib sheet for this as well. So those 5 main elements are going to have huge impact, and we're going to go through exactly how you can do that from a content perspective as well. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen, in which we'll log into an eday system. Before we, I'm just going to go and start sharing. So this is edays. You may have your own absence and leave management tool. In fact, some of you that are on here may also use edays. This is a tool, an absence and leave management tool, where you can go in and understand and put forward all of your absence and leave from a self-service perspective. If you want to log into or see any of your staff's information, you can easily click into their profile by clicking their name or searching them, and you can go into their sickness records. This means straight away you can see a lot of information on that employee. You can come in and see how many days they've had off. You can see their Bradford factor if that's something you use, and you can set up a variety of triggers and alerts. So if we're thinking about understanding or implementing a robust process, or we're thinking about being proactive and empowering managers, the first thing we want to do is create a variety of triggers. So in here, we can see the amount of days, we can see occurrences, you will have time periods, you will likely have a variety of triggers that you already have within your absence policy, and you would then go ahead and match them within your system to make sure that you don't have to be chasing this data. It can present itself to you to then impact and create that process and start that process off. The second thing that I want to look into on here is pattern analysis. So being able to understand actually what days typically employees will take off. And this is Miles's actual record in here. You're going to be able to see exactly what days they take off and see if there's any pattern there. We've had clients in the past where they've had triggers at 6 days, and then at 5 days, they've had sort of 5 Mondays. instead of it being sort of 6 days. And because they've had this analysis here, they've been able to make proactive decisions and discussions with them. But Jen, we had on a previous webinar where Paul had discussed the actual impact that it's had, where they'd had an employee that had 5 days off on a Monday over 6 months. And then when using edays had seen that, they then actually discussed about the proactive approach to change that, having sort of a more flexible working pattern to help with a really difficult life outside of that on a Saturday and Sunday. And actually reducing that meant that in the next 8 months, nothing was recorded from a sickness perspective for that employee. And that was just about understanding exactly where on the system and what days we're in, using that pattern analysis. And when you marry that up with reasons as well, that's going to be really helpful. So why would we marry anything up with reasons, and how will we do so? So let's say we were going to book someone off as sick. We were going to populate their information, and we were going to populate some details. A really important part of this is to ask reason. Reasons are really helpful, as I mentioned, for pattern analysis. They can help to give comfort to employees when discussing with them through tools such as the NHS Health and Wellbeing platform. So if I speak and click on that blue button, in here, you can see straight away when you check a cold, how to treat one, what medicines to take, where to find a local pharmacy, when to see a GP, how to avoid spreading and catching a cold in the first place. So all of that's nice and clear in the system on here, and that can be relayed and actually will be sent out to that employee as well. But actually, the really important part comes with the data that you're going to get from that as well. This is going to allow you to proactively help this employee and make sure that you understand your sickness rates. You create and put this part as your robust process, but also will allow you later on to be much more proactive and prioritize employee health and well-being. The reason being is you can also capture anything from mental health, stress, anxiety, or anything else that they want to let you know. You can add those reasons in, and you can set up alerts based on the reason behind that absence. Again, really completing that cycle of best practice, understanding your absence and empowering the business and your HR teams and office management teams as well. You can upload files again, creating a really robust sickness journey that will be booked on their behalf. Now, whatever your process starts with, so that's how a manager may do it for an employee. You can, of course, have it that the employee books it in on their behalf, and you can allow them to follow the form that you want to have on there and which elements you include. But do think in terms of your business, how you record it as well. Is it more beneficial for employees to book it in a system, log on their phone, go on an app, to fill in, a more robust element? Or is it more important that they call in? It opens up the conversation between managers. You can reduce some of the taboos for absences. These are the types of things we want you starting to consider, and you'll know best for your business. These are just different ways that you can do it. Creating a second part of the process, you may decide that you want additional forms in the system. You may decide that you want to have a self-certificate form, which then leads on to a return to work form, again, capturing more and more data that you can then use to make sure that you help your employees. You can, of course, attach doctor's notes at a later date retrospectively to complete the process, and you can set up reminders for your forms to be filled in as well, just making sure that you actually drive them in, that your data is accurate, that you get the forms completed and you complete that sickness journey that you will have worked so hard to build. Once you have that data, it's then really important to have a reporting solution that will promote patterns and promote being able to understand and use that data and that sickness journey. So in here, we have edays sort of people insight section, which basically looks into all of your staff and different elements. You can look into it around leave. So as you spoke about, holiday and breaks can actually have a big impact on your absence rates too. But we're going to drill down into unplanned leave and sickness. So in here, straight away, we can see across a 3-year average, although you can change your date range in your teams, we can see teams that have the most amount of sickness. I can go into focus mode and I can look at that in more detail. If I then want to understand information from that marketing team, I can click on that, and that's then going to adjust my smart review, leave through time, and my unplanned leave breakdown as well, meaning I get this insight straight away. So what breakdown of unplanned leave we have. And actually, if you go into that and make that focused, you can actually drill down into that information as well. So we can actually see the exact reasons behind this too. So if you decide that you want to look into the highest tier with the highest amount of absence rates, that's the first place you see a gap to reduce it. You can actually go in and focus in on this information here. All of this can then be shown as a table if you want to make sure that you find different data and have all of the data in front of you. And of course, it can be exported too. So we don't just want you to look at leave through reasons. Of course, absence rates are so important. We've just done a big talk about sort of reducing them and how you do them. But of course, you need to know them first. So you can come in and you can look at rates on the month, on the year. This is an average across sort of 3 years. Again, it's completely up to you how you want to look at it. You can look at it by team, by group. If you look at this section in here, you've got leave through time, so you can see different groups and locations and how much absence rate they have. Again, you can come in and you can focus and drill down into the teams within those locations and really make use of all of this accessible data. If you then want to go in even deeper, we can look at the breakdown of short-term and long-term. I've made quite a big talk about this around different reasons behind it and how that's helpful. We actually have in here the breakdown for this company. They can see that, just under 4% is from that longer period, which is over 14 days for this system. And under 14 days is that short-term. If I was looking in here, we can see a rise in long term. If we speak about mental health on average being 16.8 days, that might be something where you want to start opening up that conversation and training your managers to be able to discuss openly elements like burnout and mental health within the organization. The pattern analysis and breakdown per day, as well as, again, by reason, just being able to see that at the same time. You might want to click in and see if there's a specific reason that showcases different amounts. What I'd be looking at, though, if I'm being completely honest, when I come into these sorts of reports and how we speak to clients is we've got an absence rate we want to reduce. We're not going to be able to reduce that if our not specified element is at 80% or 79.27%. Without that data, it's going to make it really difficult because you're basically shooting in the dark. You can create loads of great processes. You can make sure that the sickness journey is great. But the understanding piece is the crucial element to why businesses can be doing all of the right things and yet none of them are working. And then finally, we want you to be a predictive modeling tool. We want you to use predictive modeling tools as well. In this system, you can see how many days a leaver typically takes before leaving this organization across 3 years. We can see the average is 6 days. Again, this is another metric you can pop into your understanding absence data. When are the signals for absence rates being high for them to leave the organization? So we can see it's 6 days. The type of thing we speak with our clients is, okay, do you want to pop in a trigger to make sure that you know when it's 2 days, 4 days, so that you can actually speak with them and understanding what's happening, understand their absence before it's too late, and on average they hit 6 days and they leave the organization. Absence might not be the reason. It could be their manager, the workplace, a variety of different things. But what you do know is there's an average of 6 days before someone leaves, and you have a chance to be really proactive and create an absence policy and sort of a sickness triggers to be able to intercept that, understand that, and improve your staff retention, which of course always leads down to business growth. More business growth you have, the more ability you have to invest back in on your employees, invest in your well-being strategies that you're going to want to improve with your organization. So that's pretty much everything we wanted to go through from an edays perspective, as well as sort of the 5 fundamentals for reducing your absence rates. Again, they were understanding your sickness, implementing a robust process, empowering your people managers, taking a proactive approach, prioritizing employee well-being. And we're going to send out a lovely crib sheet with lots of information and how you can help implement that within your organization. I'll stop to see if anyone's got any questions.
Lovely. Thanks, Gabby. That was a really informative session. I didn't spot any questions coming through on the chat, so I think we'll be able to wrap up there. But I hope everyone really enjoyed it and enjoyed seeing the edays system in action as well. As we've said, obviously, we'll send out the slides and that crib sheet. And if anyone would like a personalised demo of the edays system and to kind of understand more of what it can do, you can pop a request in on e-days.com and we'd be more than happy to sort that for you. Thanks again for joining today's session, and we hope to see you on another one. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.